Fantastic. It's
I'm
okay.
recording this.
Thank you. All right, Karen from Lindblad.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time this evening. It's great to be back on island. I was out here in September to visit and explore. And again, I appreciate your time this evening and welcome any questions that you have. I'll start by introducing Lindblad. We're a small ship expedition company. We've been in operation for over 50 years, and we travel all over the world. And we concentrate on ecotourism. We try to introduce the world to our guests and educate them and have as little impact as we can when it comes to a place. So we are there to learn. We have a staff of naturalists on board, historians, everything. So it's not your carnival ship with the big shows and everything. It's very educational. Our guests who travel with us are very well traveled, well educated, and usually pretty affluent. And they're curious. They want to see the world. They want to see new places. And we've been doing it, I think, very well for the last 50 years. It started over 60 years ago with the owner of our company's father, Eric Lindblad, and the owner now is Sven Lindblad. He started the company 50 years ago. Started with trips to the Galapagos and Antarctica, and we're members of IACO and IACO and the one that's with Greenland, I can't remember now, but so we're part of the board there. So we work with them to concentrate on rules, regulations, and putting in place the rules to protect those areas. So when other companies come in, it's done well and done respectfully. And this National Geographic Sea Lion, which is the ship that we would like to bring out here, is 152 feet long. It's a shallow raft, about 9 feet, 9 to 11, which makes it perfect for exploring nooks and crannies. We have 24 crew on board, 7 staff, we carry a doctor on board, and it was 62 guests, so a small ship. And our thoughts in talking to the folks out here and having seen the island is that if we come in, we would come in after lunch, knowing that we have just a few restaurants on board on the island, we don't want to overrun. We come in after lunch, and we'd be bringing guests ashore via Zodiac. So the ship, the intent was to be kind of tucked away, so we're not visible from the main harbor area. We come in from Zodiac, go to the fish beach, and unload. And we would do it in small groups. So we carry 12 people on the Zodiac. We would have them sign up ahead of time, knowing that there'd be areas that they could go hiking. We intend to buy drinks for everybody at the brewery, the museum. So we have people sign up ahead of time, knowing that they're on this Zodiac, come in, the first one would possibly come in, hit the trail for hiking, then would go for a beer, then come in and go shopping in the galleries, which they do. Our guests love to shop. So we intend that there would be money spent here on island, as well as what we would be contributing as well. And then just in the museum too. And then we would have a series of tours and departures that would kind of do that in rotation, so people were scattered among the islands, so it's not coming ashore, it's all 62 people at a time, and having a lower impact. We would educate them ahead of time, knowing that this is an island, people are living here, there's everybody's houses, their yards, please be respectful, don't open the windows, don't walk through people's yards, stay to the roads and on the trails. And we will also, as the guests are hiking on the trails, they'll be led by our naturalists on board. So they'll be taken to shore, educating, so they're always escorted, chaperoned per se. So we've got somebody who is doing the interpretation for them, the plant life that we're seeing, but there's always a lead group. We do have a doctor on board, as I said, so if there was a medical incident, we would have first responder there, so we wouldn't be taxing the local medical here. Again, coming in after lunch, then exploring the island, and then we would depart about 6 p.m. and be gone, and having come and seen the island, then experiencing it, hopefully leaving a pleasant impact, but also taking away a great experience here as people embark back on the ship and we set sail for the evening. I think I've covered just about everything. If you've got questions, please let me know. Again, we hope to be out here on 14 different stops. And we are offering 2 different itineraries that will include Montana if we're able to come out here. And 2 with one that's from Boston to Portland. And then the other one is our 5-day Main Escape tour, which is all Maine. And it's more of a natural experience and getting out and exploring all the little islands and the nooks and crannies and going to the Hurricane Center of Science and Learning at Hurricane Island. Going to stop at North Haven and visit the farm there at Turner Farm for dinner. And then kayaking, paddleboarding, hiking where we can. Very, very quintessential Maine experience, I believe. Anybody have any questions?
So reading the school itineraries, it's like the second from Boston. It looks like you're on Monday in the morning. Does that change?
We've got, yes, it has changed. So our intent is coming in the afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, to be that 1 p.m. to about 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
About her picture, the Puffins aren't going to be on.
Yeah, we're aware of that. There's other bird life to see out there. So, and when I was out here in September, we saw gray seals, and there's plenty for them to talk about.
Okay, so you wouldn't extend that time.
No. So, yeah, we would say, they needed the summer to July when the puppets are out there.
Yeah.
That will be the primary thing we'll look at, but there's plenty of, we've got a lot of birders on that travel with us, so any bird life out there, plus any of the marine life that we see as well. So, yes.
So exactly how many people would you intend to be taking on a hike on the trails?
We would work with Monhegan Associates to find out what their cap is, but normally we take 12 people per group out there, but we can split it up and it's smaller.
Karen, could you repeat the question?
Oh, yes, sorry. So the question was, how many people would we intend to take out per group on the trails? And that was said, we usually cap it at 12, but we'll work with Monhegan Associates to find out what they think is comfortable. Yes.
Just a follow-up, so if you walk the trails and you feel it's comfortable to bring 12 people on the trails, including what other tourists can be here?
I think so. I think I have walked the trail. I did the island trail, and I believe that we do it. And we, like I said, we do it smaller group size too if it's deemed necessary. So, yes.
So this is a question about walking the trails, because as the summer goes on, the trails get pretty dry. It looks like this is potentially 700,000 more people walking the trails, probably the heavier travel trails closer to the island. I don't know whether some thought is going to damage, repair, compensation. I mean, it does seem like a heavy trail load to me. And you're talking 80 people on the ship, maybe they won't all go, times 14,
Right.
we're into 1,000 people already. So,
The
and
crew,
yes, some people may not walk the trail, but
right.
this is a real heavy usage.
I also aware that there's a number of different trails, through the system, so we can, again, work with Monhegan Associates to determine, if trail usage looks like they're getting too worn, we can have different trails throughout as well that we would select, to take guests on. So we could spread out our impact and have it do that. So hopefully we wouldn't be putting too much damage, any more so than anybody else trying out there. But yes.
Have you thought about bathroom facilities for your guests?
Yes, I'm aware that you have limited bathrooms here on island. We would, again, let our guests know coming in after lunch, please use the restroom on board the ship before coming ashore. If you do need a restroom, we're happy to run the Zodiacs back to the ship and have people use the restrooms there. So we're not using the system here. Yes.
Speaking just from my personal opinion, 14 trips seems like a lot. Is that a negotiable number at all in terms of working with the community?
Yes, I would be a negotiable. We can work with everybody, and 14 departures is what we're doing. We publish, the itinerary with Monhegan in it, but also knowing that we get permission to come out here and it is flexible. We can change it up if we need to. So we want to work with the community. We don't want to, come barreling in here. We do intend to work with everybody and make sure that people are comfortable with us coming. So, yes.
What level of medical training do all of your staff have?
All of our staff, our natural staff are all CPR and first aid trained. We have our chief mate on board as our first responder, but then we are also traveling with a doctor on board. So, and they're usually ER doctors, so we do have the medical staff.
Can I just interrupt? Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sorry.
Because, once they ask it, because the people on Zoom can't hear the
Okay.
audience asking it.
So the question was how much medical training our staff has on board. And again, our staff has first aid and CPR training, and then we've got our chief mate is first responder training, and then we do travel with the doctor on board. Yes.
Are you intending to make arrangements with, you mentioned the brewery and shopping, with those particular enterprises for special arrangements for your guests?
Do we intend to make arrangements with the brewery or the galleries? Yes. I have, when I was out here in September, met with the brewery, introduced myself, and said this was our intent. We would like to come in and buy a beer for everybody. And so they can stop if they want, and then stop and enjoy a beer. And then I'll work with the galleries here to get a name of galleries that do want us to stop in. And if they've got any promotional, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too. We'll have a list of places and a map of where people can go to shop.
I've been on one of the cruises in Galapagos, and you basically have the place to yourself. So is that what you intend to see here for the brewery?
No.
You close it down just for your guests?
No, so we figured they would come and they would intermingle with the locals or any of the other tourists that are out here. So. Yes.
What happens if it rains on the day that you're planning to come to Monkey Day?
What happens if it rains on the day that we're planning to come to Monkey Day? We operate rain or shine, so we would adapt it. If the trails are not safe, then we would just come in and do, it would probably be a shorter stay. And but we would still come in and do the galleries and brewery and kind of walk around a little bit. Museum, yes, museum part of creating at a museum. That is definitely my intent for the museum. I've never been to a more incredible one, well put together up there with all the art and the history. Yes.
Good. I work at the museum in the winter, not in the summer, but the hours don't really work with when you're here.
Okay.
Because the museum closes at 3 o'clock, and in September, I think it's only open 1 to 3, maybe.
Okay.
So that's just something you can consider.
Right.
The museum has a very small staff, so I suspect they will be giving tours,
Mhm.
and it's got very short hours.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So yes, just the museum.
That's the
Right.
issue.
I'll talk with the museum, see if there's any chance that we can extend the hours or if they're willing. If not, we'll adjust the touring so we can get
Just something to
people
think
up there.
about.
Yes, thank you. Yes, sir.
So, that's one complication in that, it's not. Hours. Item, for example. What about the day? Would you provide a schedule for when you arrive, because it changes every.
Right. With the scheduling, and that's something too that I'll work with the town assessors, with the Montana Associates too. I mean, we're intending to come in the afternoon. If it makes more sense to come in the morning and still be out of here before lunchtime, we can do that too if it makes more sense with hours and places. We would provide a schedule for the guests that say that, you know, things are open at this time, or the museum closes at 3, you know, or whatever it might be. We can adjust a little bit, but we still we'll work with everybody here to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and that if our schedules are published, we can also, once it's agreed upon, publish the schedule so it can be published for everybody here on island. This is, you know, the day the ship's gonna be in, will be in at this time, or whatever it might be. So, did that answer your question?
The key thing, I think, is for the galleries.
The galleries, yes.
The galleries, it might be a Monday, and then followed by a Wednesday, followed by. It changes all the time.
Okay, yeah, so,
That's why it would be very helpful.
yeah, once we negotiate, decide, if we receive permission to come, I'll work with all the galleries get the information, know which days they're open, which galleries are open on what day, if they're, not, or if we come in on a Monday and everybody's closed, that's the way it might be, but we'll concentrate on the museum and the trails and we can, like I said, we can adjust our timing too. If 6 hours is too long because of what's available and open, we'll just be a quick visit and then we'll get underway again. Yes,
So when your intent is to land on Fish Beach?
that was my understanding. Yes, and speaking with Maddie Thompson when we were here previously, that would be, if there's another location, we're open. And so
do
we
the
would,
Zodiacs stay on the beach or they leave?
pardon?
Do the Zodiacs stay on the beach?
No, so if we come in, we would unload the gas and we would take the Zodiacs back to the ship. They would be in radio contact with our staff on island. So we would radio and have the Zodiacs come back, pick up people when they're ready to be picked up. So when we come ashore with Life Vest too, the Life Vest would be loaded into the Zodiacs and taken back to the ship. So there wouldn't be a pile of Life Vests on the beach
And you're aware that that's also where there's a restaurant, which gets
Yes.
very crowded, lines and people waiting, and so consider trying to get all your people through that.
right, which
morass.
hopefully with the lines there at the restaurant at Fish Beach, we would be coming in after the bulk of the lunch crowd. So hopefully the lines would be smaller and we would navigate. And we would be telling our guests before they come ashore, just the concerns and, please be cautious walking through here. Yes.
Okay. How many staff would be with each group?
At least one, if not two, with each group. How many staff would be with them?
And
Yes.
then related to that, where would you station the chief mate and the doctor?
Doctor would be on shore. They usually, if we were doing like one of the longer trails, doctor would probably be with them, but they always have a radio on them, so we can get them back to if there's an incident here. Chief mate is usually on board the ship, but on that day we'll probably bring him in. So he's on island as well with the doctor. Yes. Oh,
So I'm sorry.
There's one over here.
Do want to interrupt? We're just trying to repeat the question for the people on Zoom so that they're clear on what you are answering to them. So that was about where medical staff is on the ship
On the island.
and on the
Yeah,
island as far as for your staff
Mhm.
is concerned. Okay.
Is there any compensation to Montana at all?
Is there any compensation to Monhegan? That's something that we can definitely discuss. Yeah, I would actually recommend that we pay a user fee to come in, either per person fee that goes to the community, as well as what we would be spending with buying the beer and the museum and such. But yes, we are open to that. Something we visit a lot of little communities, and some of the places that I visit in Alaska with our, we took the ship into, we have protocol agreements, so it's kind of a contract, and this is the dates they'll be in, and we agree to pay, a person fee to come ashore, and that helps pay for whatever services are needed out here on the island, and helps with that. So yes, it is negotiable, something we can have a conversation with the assessors and the associates and everybody. So yes.
So just going back to the medical coverage. So if you have the doctor and one other person on the island, are you suggesting then that you all are responsible for your own medical recovery if there was in fact an accident, or are you counting on island resources to make those rescues?
Right, so the question is, would we be responsible or accounting for our medical services in any evacuation that might happen, or relying on the island services? We are not relying on the island services unless they happen to arrive with a medical. But no, our doctor, if there's a reason that we need to medically evacuate somebody, would it be either be a ship or a helicopter coming out, where we would be taking care of that. So, and not having we'd be taking on the cost, and it would not be the responsibility of the island. So, yes.
So just to tie into that, I don't know how to repeat that, but if you were to have a helicopter on the island, you would need to have someone there who knows how to train to have that.
Right,
With that.
Yeah, so if there was a medical incident that we need to have somebody, we would obviously be working with somebody here on island, whether it's medical thing, but we would not be relying on the medical staff here to be the ones doing the attending, but we'd definitely be working with the island to make sure that if the helicopter is needed, that's, we are
I mean,
Finding the
I would say
location.
like any guest of the island or any visitors, we would be
You'd want to be
prepared to
involved.
help.
Yeah.
In whatever capacity we would
Right.
be and hand off to where
Yes.
your more experienced people we would contact our local contacts and call Lifeline if necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a partnership that we would take our doctor would be the one attending to the guest. Questions? And Carla knows how to reach me, so any other questions come up after the meeting, please let her know. She can send me an email or we can call, so definitely want to answer everybody's questions and concerns. Okay.
Okay, we do have one question on Zoom, it's sort of a follow-up to what you were just talking about. Are you aware of the incident that we had last week? Someone fell 30 feet and needed to be evacuated.
Was not aware of that, no.
Yeah, so that's sort of on people's minds.
Right,
At the time. And I don't think there's much follow-up to that yet.
Okay.
There was a recent incident.
We would obviously, like I said, be preparing our guests for the trail and letting them know what we're looking, what it's like, that it is narrow, it's on a rocky ledge, and, they need to be careful watching their foot. We do hikes all over the world, Alaska on islands, Antarctica on ice, and had very few incidences in the 50 years that we've been operating. It has happened, yes, but very few. And with the training of our staff and the preparation of our guests and making sure that they're just being cautious and following the rules, we've been successful in getting thousands of people out there and seeing the world without very little incidents.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
can you say a little bit more about the groups that will go on the trails? Specifically, would each group be guided? Would someone from your staff accompany?
The question is, would the groups that go on the trails be guided? Yes, we do not send our groups out unattended, so there'll be a naturalist with them. Part of the expedition staff would be with them. So every group is guided, escorted. So. Yes.
So, I imagine for discussions with media associates, you understand that it's private land. This is a park. So do you take hikes and expeditions in other places where your guests are hiking and going out onto private land, but it's not a state park, national park?
Not many places, no. We are not. The question is, do we travel to a lot of places and go hiking on private land? Not usually. We're usually in parks or out in the wilderness areas. So again, we would be prepping the guests and let them know that this is private land, privately owned, and to be respectful, to be courteous, and to stick to the trails and to the roads.
Yeah, have you had any experiences where, there was some complication that it's difficult to get back to the ship? So whether it's the wind comes up or, I don't know exactly the length of your zodiacs and kind of capabilities, but, do you have a contingency plan for that typically?
We had incidents where weather or whatever it might be has gotten in the way of getting back to the ship. Not that I'm aware of, but we can adapt. We can reposition the ship someplace if we need to. And adjust. I'm trying to think of what we would do out here if the wind did come up and it was, they're 18-foot zodiacs. And we've experienced drivers, so we drive through most anything. Unless it gets incredibly windy in places where the seas are way too rough, then, we won't, for the safety of the guests, but. Yes.
Where would the ship be, actually?
That's something, where would the ship be? So that's something that we need to work with Sherm, the harbor master, with the associates to determine where the best location would be. As I said, my intent would be to not be in view from the harbor, that we would be tucked away probably around the bend over here, and we either Zodiac, or not Zodiac, but either anchor or Hove 2, gives it just hover, not actually be anchored. So we'll be working with SHRM to determine the best location for the vessel.
Yes.
Yes.
You said that, that Midway would be willing to pay a user's fee. And what I keep thinking about is, the toilet. And how realistic it is to, if someone has to go to the bathroom to get on the boat, and so they are back in, especially if they're way out in the trail. Right. And I'm thinking, 60 people coming for 14 different times. How taxing that might be on. Can you give us an example of what you paid in other situations for user fees? Like in Alaska or
Right.
in a remote area in Alaska?
Right. So the question whether how realistic is it for our guests to be using the restroom on board the ship, being able to go on the trail, and what the impact of the septic system here. The toilet usage, yes, we're gonna have people here that are gonna need to use the toilet behind, but we will definitely prep them and plan to have a Zodiac that's close by to take people out if we need to. In working with some of the other communities where we do pay user fee to come ashore, we're paying anywhere from $5 to $45 per person for, and it's negotiable, and whatever seems reasonable, that would help pay for toilet paper and everything else, that we need to upkeep on the restrooms. I don't expect that all 62 guests would use the restroom on island, so, but it will be used, I'm sure. Yes.
One of the things that the Peak Associates really tries to accomplish in terms of private lands is offering visitors kind of some peace of solitude while they're out there, and making some sense of privacy and ability to appreciate nature without being surrounded by lots of people. I personally think, I'm sorry, Vice President of the Peak Associates.
Okay.
So I personally feel, and I'm not speaking for the Peak Associates at this time, I'm speaking for myself, that if I were on the trail and having 12 people suddenly kind of come to where I'm trying to enjoy a spot, especially on a heavily traveled trail where there are lots of people, I think 12 would be a little heavy-handed. What are the options for something like 6? I mean, for all the years I've been hiking the trail, I don't think I've ever seen a group of 12 people hiking at one time. I mean, at the max, maybe 5 or 6 at the most. And I would certainly want to protect, the experience of all the other people who are on the island, kind of seeking that natural experience. I know I personally been in the same groups that if this happens, that are small and controlled, that more like happens.
Right. Okay. So the question whether or not the group size would be negotiable, and yes, definitely. Traditionally we take 12 people, but that is negotiable. If 6 is more appropriate, we can definitely do that. We'll work with Mohegan Associates to determine which is a comfortable size. And again, working with trail etiquette with our guests too, and saying, if the lead naturalist that's ahead sees that there's somebody up there, having everybody be quiet as we pass through that area. It's easy enough for us to ask of them. And we travel, we're hiking in Alaska all the time. Our intent is to take people out there and enjoy in nature and enjoy the quiet. And we oftentimes will take people out and stop and say, let's have a moment of silence, just listen to the waves, listen to the wind or the trees, the noises of the forest. So getting them to disconnect a little bit too and enjoy the peace and quiet out there as well. Yes.
Just sort of jumping in on that, in addition to just the numbers of people, I'm not accustomed to hearing trail information, people describing their trails or the, or farm or the, it seems like it should be make the enjoyment of the trails, if that's a part of it, the broadcast, it, and I know people have likes, but why do these people talk, it just is, it's very small. Very simple.
Yes. The concern about us talking all the time on the trail, we don't. We, a lot of times we're moving, we're hiking. We'll stop and they may spend a few minutes in one location talking about the plant, like they're seeing, they're on the trail, there's poison ivy or something else, or something else that's growing out on the trail. But they're not talking all the time, and we're moving, we're getting out to enjoy the scenery. So it wouldn't be a constant jabber, and we're using, it's just me talking to you, no mics, nothing like that with the, so it's just a small group talking and not talking all the time. Yes.
Talking about the schedule, is yeah, back and forth. For that during one of the stops here.
So we have 5 Zodiacs on board. So the question is, how many trips back and forth with the Zodiacs to get people ashore and back to the ship? We have 5 Zodiacs. We carry up to 12 people on them as well. So we can do a couple, we can get everybody ashore with one trip from each of the Zodiacs, so 5 in, 5 back. So, and we would have them staggered. So we would have having them sign up with whatever tour schedule we come up with, after speaking with the various entities. And we would have staggered departures, so like those that were doing the longer hike would leave first, they would come in, and then so one at a time. Yes.
So, just as a follow-up, I appreciate that you're trying to find a place to tuck the ship away so it wouldn't impact the harbor too much. Where it looks like you're thinking of tucking this different little community island.
Okay.
And 10 Zodiacs back and forth. Okay. Quite different from when I lived at Martinell and a big ship parked up there for many visitors. So I do have a concern about this back and forth with the motor, and it's really going to change that part of the island. Every time the ship comes, it's going to be disruptive, and it will change the feel of where I live.
Okay. So the concern, question, or not question, but concern of the back and forth of Zodiacs and noise from the motors and it changing the feel of the island. Again, I'm not sure where the ship will be. We'll be working with Sherm and everybody to determine the best location. We will in quiet, so it's not a roaring motor. We can keep the sound down, and so be a back and forth on arrival, and then a back and forth 5 hours later. So it can get constant. So hopefully, very little disruption, and not a whole lot noisier, I think, than some of the boats going out. But again, I understand your concern. Yes.
So, suggestion to bring the number down to 12 to 6 is a good one. But do you have enough people to guide 8 or so such groups of 6?
Right. So that was where we would schedule it so we'd have so many on the trail at a time. We would have some at the museum, so they're not on the trail at the same time, and they would depart at different times. So the staff would come in and would lead different groups and different departures. So they would do multiple hikes on a trip ashore. So yes, we have, I think, enough staff that we can do the various group sizes, group departures. Again, we have people at the museum, people shopping, people at the brewery, so not everybody's on the trail at the same time or departing at the same time. So, yeah. Yes.
So I have a question about the museum. How many people would you bring up there at a time? You can take 10 of them at a time.
Okay.
And oftentimes it's pretty crowded. And their mind wants, it's only 2 hours.
Okay.
And same with the museum, I think it's a little crowded there. I was just wondering if you had maybe regions to be able to accommodate want to visit museum or life.
So the question about whether we made accommodations in the group size for visiting the lighthouse and museum, have not, I've been up there and toured it, and we discussed, I met with somebody at the ticket desk, and we were talking about and Gen Pi, yes, and communication with Gen Pi. So again, like with the trails, the group size, we keep it small, probably 6 to 10, and would work with the museum, depending on the timing, to have a set time that the guests would show up. So to expect that group at that time would be staggered, so. Yes. Yeah, because I've experienced doing this in other locations too, so where we'll work with everybody, make sure that there's timing, and we'll stick to that. And then again, it's based on the sign up sheet that you have the guests do on board the ship, so they know that if I'm leaving it, I'm coming to shore at 2:30, I'm going directly to the museum, and then this is my rotation that I'm doing, so everybody would know. Yes.
Would you have any other explorations with the Zodiac or with kayaks or anything like that?
We would not, probably just because I know that it can get windy out here, we would not have anybody out on the water other than the Zodiac, and then we would not have any other Zodiac tours, it would just be the back and forth to the ship to the island. So, yeah. We will do that other places in Maine, so yeah, not here, just because, again, no, the weather could be iffy, and we don't want to take anybody out, plus, or don't want to add any disturbance beyond the back and forth with the shuttle. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about how the process of putting this whole thing together. And do I understand correctly, these tools are already being marketed to the public?
It is being marketed, we do have that, so that it's upon permission, and if we change our itinerary, we'll change our itinerary. But the hope and the intention was to come out here, but knowing too that it's not a done deal. So if permission is not granted, we will change the itinerary.
Okay, that's where the language of.
Yeah.
Without permission.
Right, with marketing, we have to market what's gonna attract people's attention, but we also say in our marketing, this is a sample itinerary, that the custom itinerary will be designed by the expedition leader and captain once they board the ship. So we're an expedition company, it's flexible, we can adjust where we're going, and but marketing, obviously you're wanting to attract people, if it's, you know, if we have to change it, to change. So, yes.
Would all the staff be visiting the island beforehand, to be familiar with it?
Would all the staff be visiting the island ahead of time? Not everybody will be able to come out here, we'll try to get much of the staff out here ahead of time if we can. When I was out here in September, we had one of our expedition leaders accompanied us. She didn't stay on the island, but she did accompany us, and she's familiar with the harbor, what it looks like. So if we can get people out here ahead of time, we will, but I will also be providing as much information ahead of time, training with the staff, so they're familiar with what to expect, and you know, providing them with maps and everything, and introducing them to key figures here as well, just so there's that contact. Anybody else, any questions? Any questions online?
Yeah, can you just recap the question about the marketing of the cruise?
Yes. So we market the cruise usually a year out, if not ahead of time. In planning, we oftentimes are marketing things that are still in negotiation and planning purposes. But again, we are flexible. But again, with marketing, you're always trying to attract attention and get people out here. And Monhegan is a destination that people are intrigued by. Again, knowing though that if we have to adjust it, we will replace it if we aren't granted permission to come out here. We'll find another location to visit along the coastline. So, okay, yes.
Could you be a little more specific about how you are actually marketing, what kinds of things you're saying about the island to attract your listeners?
So if you took a flyer that I handed out, it just says to visit the artist colony of Mohegan. And we just mentioned it's very briefly, I haven't gone into a deep, description of the location or saying what we're gonna be doing necessarily, but
So this paragraph here is your marketing.
the most, part, yes. So, but we'll have an email blast that will go out. And we can also, this is what's online, and that's also adjustable, so I can change the wording if needed, I can contact our marketing partner, I can't adjust anything. So. Yes.
Is this meeting occurring at your initiative or at the initiative of concerned members of the
I was coming to Maine for the Cruise New England Canada symposium that's taking place this week, and so I contacted Carly, assessor's office, and said, I'm willing to come out here and meet with anybody, answer any questions that come up. And I met with everybody via Zoom, was it October? Yes, and answered questions and said what we were planning. So very open, trying to communicate as much as possible with everybody to make sure that all the questions are answered and concerns and everything. So everybody has the best information for making decisions. Yes.
So is this a done deal? Like,
Is this a done deal? No, it is not a done deal. We would like to come out and visit, but we appreciate the concerns of everybody and why we're out here asking questions and any concerns, and we'll work with the community, with the assessors, with Montgomery Associates to decide whether it will happen or not.
So let's say if something happens, God forbid, in the middle, like let's in July or something, we stop the rest of the cruises, like
The cruises would still go, but the visit out here, if there was a need for it to stop, yes, we would adjust and, we're into this. We can, if there was something were to come up and we need to not come out here any longer, yes, we could adjust.
I can just add one thing. I think big shifts. So I work in the Maine Office of Tourism, cruise tourism, work with a lot of communities around Maine. There's a lot of conversations like this one. The big shifts you probably are picturing, they have to know where they're going. There's so much that goes into managing 3,000 people and all that. They have to know where they're going. This is a very different operation. It's a very precise vessel. So you're familiar with like the car ferry that goes to Vinyl Haven. That's how big this ship is. It's just different, and because there are only 62 guests, they can change where they go, and they're American flag. They're registered here in the U.S. since they don't need customs or Coast Guard designations or anything like that to go to a community. So it's very easy for them to adjust. They do it based on weather. Bad weather one day, they may not make it to somewhere they want to go. It's really different from the large ships you might be imagining. We can hear the words cruise ship.
And that's something too that, in working with the community and your decision whether or not to accept us or to, and the concern that if we come, will that open it up to all the ships coming in? And I would hope not to be safe, but also something where you can cap, you can say that you only want US flag or no foreign flag, or you want to cap it, no ships above 100 passengers or 50 passengers or whatever, something that you as a community can decide. And that's easy. We visited a national park in Canada in the island group of the Haida Gwaii, and we are the largest ship with 62 passengers that's allowed to go into Guayhanas National Park there. We grandfathered in and we're the largest one. They put the cap, wasn't us. And even we have two vessels that are 100 passengers, slightly larger than the sea line, they're not allowed to go. So it's something that you can make a cap in whatever's comfortable. Yes.
My question is probably for our assessors, but my guess is that that's not true, because we're a plantation and we have such limited ability to make any kind, we can't make an ordinance without the state of Maine's legislature okaying it. So how do we do that? How do we make a cap like that? I mean, isn't that the reason we're having these meetings right now, trying to figure out how to stop this from being the open door that lets too many people come in? I don't believe we can make it happen.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's why so many people, I think, are very concerned about this, because it really is opening the door, in my book. So, I don't know, the answer is.
I mean, I hear you, and I know we've kind of went back and forth on what we can do and what we can't do, and I think the reality is that Mohegan, you know, the smaller ship is obviously, you know, is pushing us to our limits, and we've had an increase in visitors over last year due to, you know, COVID restrictions, cut out some people, and then when it was lifted, people were just coming back. So last year was probably an all-time high in most recent memory, and I think it just so happened that you're planning to come at this point. So now we're trying to figure that out. But I think our limited, the wharf is our wharf, our facilities are our facilities. So for any ship larger, it's just physically impossible for us to receive anything larger than that. So I think that's we can state our preference as far as yes, no, but I think the reality of any other ships wanting to dock here is just an impossibility, because we're not equipped to handle anything beyond what we're already handling.
I'm just doing worst case scenario.
Sure.
What's to stop not your company, but a 100-person ship parking off and bringing the Zodiac into our wharf? We can't stop people from coming to our wharf, we're public wharf. So how do we stop 100 people not being as considerate as you, not making the plans that you're talking to us about, stopping out there, and they're bringing maybe 15 Zodiacs in, and they're coming to the wharf, and they're getting off, and they're coming onto the island? I think there is, for me, there's a great concern about the unintended consequences of okaying this. Nothing personal about
Right, no, I'm
company or anything,
right.
just.
I can say that American Cruise Lines, which is the other US flag vessel that operates here, small ship, they don't have Zodiacs, they don't take their guests ashore that way. We're one of the few that do, so that would also limit their ability to come ashore. I mean, the big ships don't have it all, right now, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, that's a conversation for the conversation with Sarah and Cruise Maine, and to see what our, you know, what leg we have to stand on legally, and
I will just say, I know I understand why every meeting goes to what right do you really have and what legally can we do. I absolutely understand why you go there, because at the end of the day, you think if something happens that we don't want to be happening, what's our recourse? However, I will say that, first of all, the large ships, they have to go to a US Coast Guard designated facilities. They're all foreign flag. They have to go to a secure facility with a certain Coast Guard designation. That's federal law. You don't have it. They cannot come here. They cannot disembark guests here, the big ones. And they wouldn't try, to be honest. They need the bathrooms.
Yeah.
They did 100 times more bathrooms down back there for a large ship. It wouldn't be a good experience for their guests. They would never try. And all of the lines, every line I've ever spoken to, every line I've ever worked with, if a community says that they've never been to, says, please don't come, we don't want you to come here. We are not interested in this business. They do not go. So I wanted, at least to the extent that I can, you know, from my experience having done this for several years and working on behalf of the state of Maine and other communities along the coast with a lot of these lines. The only ships that could disembark guests here are American flag ships. There's only 2 brands, this one and American Cruise Lines, that you've probably all seen in Bath and Belfast and Rockland and other places. And that you could send them a letter, I think I mentioned this to Fred Fowler. You could send them a proactive letter and say, you may hear that if this goes through, you may hear that there's a ship coming through. We just want to be really clear. This is our absolute max. We can only handle this size. 100 is too many. Please don't come. Good luck on the mainland. We're happy with it.
On a slightly different topic, what happens with all your ocean discharge? I mean, how is that handled when you're cruising, I mean, we're 10 miles out of the city.
Right, we have to go 3 miles off coast for discharge, and that includes the island, so it'd be at least 3 miles off the island. And we'll be doing that, it wouldn't be this evening, it would be a different, we'd be taking out and discharging, and it's all treated. So we're mandated by the Coast Guard and US rules, so we do everything respectfully, otherwise we're fine. So we would be doing, and we wouldn't be dumping out near island, yes.
Jim's point is well taken. The boats cannot bring 10% to our port. That's just a no-go. How many, is yours the only boat that has Zodiac? Of that size?
Is ours the only boat that has Zodiacs of that size that's cruising this area? Yes, so American Cruise Lines, they do not carry Zodiacs on board, they go into port, dock at a dock that they can bring the ship to. So we would be the only ones, as far as I know, and Sarah's done the research as well, that would have a ship over here be doing with Zodiacs.
There's some in Alaska.
Yeah.
That stay in Alaska.
Including 3 of my other ships will be Alaska, they're all Zodiacs up there, and then the small frigate, we'd be the only one over here.
The American flag was built in the US and owned by a United States company. We have the shipyards that build ships are very few that build this kind of passenger ship, and they're all small, and there's just very few of them. So you count them up and see where they are, and there are no others on the East Coast besides this one ship from an American size. And people here, check. I'm sorry, I can't.
Can I hear?
I'm trying to project.
Nobody has said that they can't.
Okay.
So,
I live here, so I'm reachable easily. I'm not in London. I live there.
I think we've struggled as well with because we have at least 5 vessels a day or 5 landings a day from our ferry system. And we've seen an uptick in day trippers. So the bathrooms, the trash, the trails are already at a point in trying to work with our boat lines to be as sensitive as, we have yet to have kind of a back and forth that is what we're experiencing now, to have them hear us and give us some numbers or give us some that are what we're anticipating. We're trying to work with them as well to minimize the impact as far as the noise and the trash in the bathrooms.
And that's
On top of
something I think we have a little bit more solidification of numbers than the
Sure.
ferry does, so we can give you a account prior to the season starting,
Sure.
saying this is how many people we sold, and we could update you weekly, say this is how many people we expect. And that we actually have, I would work with somebody here and have a point of contact that our expedition staff would say, hey, we're coming on this day, we have this many people,
Sure.
and give you a heads up. So, and again, I think with if we were to pay a user fee to come ashore, that would help with the bathrooms and uptake, where you may not get that with the day trippers, but yeah, I'm not sure how the ferry fee, if any of that goes to the island or not. But,
Trash.
oh, yeah, trash, question, we would, like we do anywhere, our guests come ashore, we'd ask them that they pack in and pack out. So if they bring a granola bar ashore, that they would put it in their backpack and take it back to the ship, so that there isn't any additional trash piling up here. So it's something that we're used to, our guests are used to it, so that would be something we would expect them to do, so. Yes.
If an agreement were reached for you to visit this, 2023, is the assumption then that that pattern would continue? Or if the island community finds that it didn't, or whatever it was that we had agreed on, that it really didn't work for us, is it something then that the island can retract?
I would think, yes, there is it negotiable for going beyond 2023. Yes, obviously, if it's not a good partnership, it does not work. We will work with everybody. If you say no, can't come, we don't want you to come back, we would go someplace else. Yeah, we don't want to come when we're not welcome, because it's not a good experience for anybody. If that's okay. So, yes.
Was there any thought given to starting with a fewer number of visits? And this seems like a very unexpected, following up on that.
Has any of you thought been given to starting out with fewer?
But we
Again-
could get a sense of what it was like and what the impact was. And
Right.
make decisions.
Again, it's negotiable with the community, so if you don't want 14, we can definitely work with it. As far as the marketing side of it, no, because it was just easier to say one itinerary where we had to count for all of these different departures, but it's flexible, we can't change it on the fly, so. Yes.
Been any, like, conversation about the day of the week? Because some days of the week here are busier than the day trippers than others. Some of it obviously is just weather dependent, but obviously Fridays, weekends, and maybe there's certain other days that, you know, there people can speak to that I don't know about.
Right.
I just didn't know if that was something that had been considered.
Has there been any conversation about days of the week that we visit? It hasn't come up yet in conversation, but it's definitely, like I said, we could adjust our itinerary, given the fact we're expedition. If there's certain days that makes more sense. With the 5-day itinerary that we have, it has us, coming in at different days of the week. It's not a set same day every week, so, but we can adjust them. I do that elsewhere, in Alaska for Glacier Bay visits. It's an permitted entry. We're working with a whole bunch of other vessels, so my days of the week will change, and I set up create an itinerary for the vessel that they know weekly that they have to, it's not the same itinerary. They know they need to look and see which day that they're going to depart. So we adjust the itinerary accordingly. We can do that with the community here. If a certain day is not good, we'll adjust the itinerary and visit one of the other locations on the day that so yes, we can work with that. Yes, sir.
September 29th is awfully close to trap day.
Yes, I'm aware that September 29th and that October 2nd date, close to trap day. Again, that's something that we can work with and adjust, to make sure we don't want to be in the way of livelihood here at all. So we will adjust as needed.
That's just about an hour.
Well, thank you all for your time this evening for coming, and again, if you have any questions, please contact Carly and she'll forward them on, we'll answer for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.